Okay, we've got patch 25.23, and they're going to be nerfing Ashe, Caitlyn, Hui, Jinx, Kai'Sa, Rek'Sai, Vladimir, while buffing Aatrox, Ahri, Ambessa, Cho'Gath, Jace, Jhin, Malphite, Misfortune, Ornn, Riven, Sion, Skarner, Swain, Tristana, Volibear, Xayah, and Zeri, while adjusting Dr. Mundo, Fizz, and Mel, and making some system adjustments to Sunfire Aegis. I was going to say Sunfire Cape, but we don't live in that era anymore. So this looks like a rather large patch. Obviously, we're past Worlds now, so they're kind of gearing up for changes leading into the next season. But obviously, the main patch for next season will come, since there's no preseason anymore, it will come right at the end of the season, which is probably going to be like it was last year, around the same dates. So probably early January, January 8th through 11th is when we saw it last year. And before they ended it, usually November 8th to 11th. So usually that's around the time that it's getting pushed to, would be that time in January. So that's roughly when you should expect the season to end until we have the actual date announced. But obviously they can make a lot of changes that aren't radical changes to objectives or the jungle or the game or the map or anything like that. Although we'll talk about that because we have a winter map in this patch. But that's just visual, right? So major changes will come on that patch in a month or so. But, aside from that, they can make a lot of champion changes now that Worlds is over. So I think that's what we're seeing is they wanted to hold back. They didn't want to overbuff, let's say, champions that could be good and competitive, like Aatrox, Ambessa, Jace, that I'm seeing here, among others. They didn't want to accidentally buff those champions and then make them mainstays at Worlds or anything like that. So quite a lot of champion changes here that they've probably been holding back for Worlds, and I'm happy to see this because I think there are a lot of champions that could use some love, but it's good that they were working on those things because I'm sure they didn't do all this in 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever. It seems like they probably had some changes in mind for a long time and were just scared to execute them before Worlds, which I think is fine. We've seen obviously some pretty drastic bad changes before Worlds in the past, so this seems like good that they're returning to this really large patch after Worlds, and should hopefully shake the game up for a little bit at the end of the season before we get into next year. So winter map is coming. I've played on it. Looks absolutely amazing. It's one of the few times actually, because I'm always the guy who's like, can we have an option to toggle this off? I'd really like to be able to play the game the way I want to be able to see it. But, sometimes there's problems with that or whatever. I'm not really sure technically what goes into that on the back end. But honestly, I have to say, even though I'm a big fan of the traditional green map, this map is just absolutely amazing. So no complaints for me. I'm going to really enjoy playing on this one until it's gone. So there is no setting to toggle this off, but I don't really mind it. So great map. Let's see what they've got here. So Winter's Rift, Santa Braum mentioned right in the first line, so this is going to be a good patch. You must have all been on Santa Braum's nice list this year because the Winter Rift is back. They must have stolen this from my stream, by the way. I did this bit last year. It's an obvious one, but I did this bit last year where I was keeping a naughty list and a nice list, and I was just putting, some of my teammates from solo queue straight onto the naughty list last year. So we'll keep an eye out for that one. But yeah, everyone's on Santa Braum's nice list this year because the Winter Rift map is back. It's been a long time coming, but we're back on the Winter Rift for the holidays. Get your hot chocolate ready and queue up. One thing I'll say is they turned the health potions into hot chocolate and they turned the biscuits into gingerbread cookies. That bothers me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I think it's a cool change, but it bothers me a little bit. It's definitely confusing at first when you see that. So when you hop into solo queue and, I'm a little bit late with the patch notes. I mean, it is the day of the patch, but I could have done it earlier. When I hopped in and I saw the gingerbread cookie, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit confused. And I could easily see people confusing the gingerbread cookie for, the health potion or something else because it just doesn't look much like it. I mean, I get it. Kind of, cookie is a cookie. Potion is more like a drink, I guess. So like the hot chocolate. I don't know. It's a little bit confusing, a little bit annoying for ranked. Get over it. There's a lot of worse stuff we have to adapt to in League over the years, so it is what it is. But I could see some people misclicking their biscuit for sure because of the whole gingerbread cookie thing. but it is what it is. To celebrate winter coming back to the Rift, all winter legacy skins will be turned on and available for purchase when the patch 25.323 patch goes live. So yeah, I mean, that's really nice. So you can pick up holiday skins, like if you don't have Santa Braum, like me, I've had Santa Braum for a while now. If you don't have Santa Braum, you can go get it now. So that's kind of good. We also have some new winter themed skins coming in the next patch. So you'll be able to pick up both old and new favorites. New champion, Zaheen. Probably have to do a whole separate video on Zaheen. I didn't realize there was a new champion, as per usual, until I get into solo queue and somebody bans it. But yeah, Zaheen is the new champion that's being introduced into the game. No idea what the champion is like yet. I don't really follow that stuff before it releases, so we'll probably have to take a look at that separately. Arcane Anniversary. This November marks 1 year since Arcane's finale. We're celebrating that anniversary online with all of you. The Arcane team will be looking back at the series, sharing behind-the-scenes content, blah, 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 and merch. This is just a big ad. On the League side of things, we're bringing back all of the Arcane skins from Season 1 and Season 2, which includes Arcane Fractured Jinx, who will be coming back to the Sanctum for the next 2 patches. Okay, I'm going to mention it. I really wanted to gloss over it because I want to get into the changes, and there's so many of them. This is going to go like 2 hours. But I did want to kind of mention with the winter skins coming back, there's something nice if you have the skin, if you own it, about the exclusivity of it, right? And there is something a little bit weird with the winter skins. I wouldn't mind it so much, which is why I didn't really bother mentioning it, because I think it's kind of assumed with Halloween skins or winter skins, Christmas skins and stuff like that, that there's a big chance that they'll bring them back for Christmas and things like that in future years. And I think it's more important maybe in some ways for people who didn't have the chance to get them to be able to get the best Braum skin in the game, Santa Braum, than it is to make sure that it's exclusive for people like me who have already had it. And but especially with the skin like Arcane Fractured Jinx, this was like the $200 super expensive Jinx skin, right? I'm not really sure that skins like that are sold, I mean, it's almost a bit scammy that a skin like that is sold with this super expensive price line and this air of exclusivity that this is a limited time event. You've got to get this right now. And then to just bring it back and sell it again seems like a cash grab and a bit disrespectful to the players who felt like they were buying a limited edition skin. So I don't know. They do this a lot, and I guess it's up to them to do it or not. But limited edition skins in League have never really held the same esteem as they do in other games, not only because you can't trade them, but because you can't be sure that they're actually going to be limited edition. Like let's say the Faker skin, right? If we're being honest, when Faker retires, they're probably going to sell that $500 Faker skin again. I mean, they probably made a ton of money off of it. And to be able to sell it later on when he's maybe it's hard to imagine, but has an even better, bigger reputation. It seems like that these type of limited edition skins in League just don't really mean anything because they don't really honor the fact that it's limited edition or like legacy. The whole point of that is it's supposed to mean that you can't get it, and yet obviously there's many ways to get it, and they'll bring them back and sell them again to make money. So it's a little bit weird, but that's fine. Okay, linking penalties across accounts. This is kind of important. We've been talking about this a lot recently. With 2523, we're going to begin linking certain penalties across accounts, starting with disruptive gameplay and inappropriate text. This means that when an account receives a penalty for either of those infractions, the same penalty will be applied to all accounts owned by that player. The penalty notification will indicate if the account receiving the penalty actually committed an offense or was penalized through linking. As we gain confidence that the system is working, we'll expand the coverage to link additional penalty types across accounts. I think this is a smart, safe way to roll it out. So they're going to take some basic punishments for pretty simple things like, disruptive gameplay would usually result in some things like maybe having to play the normal games. Inappropriate text chat will result in things like having to play the couple of normal games and or like being chat restricted. And I think that that's a really obvious one where you can say if you get chat restricted on one account, so if you don't know, Riot's been leading up to this where they're saying with Vanguard and being able to see exactly what device you're on and that sort of thing, and being able to detect the way that you play the game as well, we can tell that it's you on a Smurf account, obviously. And so because of that, we're going to apply penalties across accounts so that people can't get permanently banned on an account and then just hop onto another account like nothing happened and continue to play. And there's pros and cons to that, but I think in general, it kind of makes sense. There's a couple of concerns related to this, though. Obviously, one, you want to make sure that it's working very accurately. And so I think this is a great way to go about doing that by making sure that small punishments, for a patch, you give out small punishments, link it across accounts, see if you're getting accurate results or not. If it's not, you go back to the chalkboard. Nobody uses a chalkboard anymore. You go back to the drawing board and you work it out. And if it's working fine, then you're more confident in expanding it to harsher penalties, like accounts just being banned completely. So that makes sense. One issue that I kind of have with this that hasn't been discussed is, in addition to linking penalties, they're just linking the fact that your accounts are clearly owned by the same person. And I believe that that's going to affect MMR and your kind of rank placement and how fast you're climbing on accounts. And this is kind of the end of an era because I've talked before about different ways that people have done challenges with other roles. And I'm a little bit disappointed because, I was at a point, obviously, where I have a lot more to prove on support before I move on to other roles, even if that's something that I can maybe do a little bit more casually or for fun. And I was kind of looking forward to having my own arc of proving that support players are not as overrated as people think that they are, that I can go and play AD carry and jungle and these other roles just fine, especially with some time to learn them and practice them. And I feel like that, if we're being honest, is going to be tainted now by the fact that I'm going to climb faster on any account that I play on because Riot knows through Vanguard that it's me and that I'm, a player who's hit Challenger before or wherever I'm at right now. It's going to know I'm at like 300 and something LP right now. We're getting there. We're really pushing to get back to GM by the end of the season. But Riot knows that information. And so my climb on my other roles is going to be easier than it should be. And so there's kind of three different ways that you can kind of think about this. And it's important to contextualize because I don't think a lot of people realize this. But there are very different ways that people climb in ranked when they've been doing these off-roll challenges. One way that we've seen is the way that Tyler 1 did it, and the way that he did it was by hand leveling all 5 or 4 of his accounts that he did the other roles with in bot games. And because they were all bot games, he went into ranked with the exact same MMR that any new player would have gone into ranked with. They've made some changes recently to the rank placement system where you have to play 10 normal games, and they use your normal game MMR to seed your placements. So if Tyler 1 were to try to do the same thing today, not that it would skew it that much, but he'd have to play 10 normal games, and those 10 normal games that he would play, if he try-harded in them and won them, would, even just through other metrics of the way that he clicks and plays the game, that would basically inform the system that this guy should start a little bit higher. And so he wouldn't exactly have the same experience of climbing through silver and, struggling with that at the same time as he's just first starting on the role and learning it. So that's one way. The purest form of doing an off-roll challenge is hand leveling the accounts and bots, so that there's no artificial MMR beyond what's needed. Then there's the modern version of that where you have to play 10 normal games, but whoop-de-doo, right? It's not a lot of games. It's not going to affect your MMR that drastically. And the 10 normal games are not really that different than playing like your first 10 ranked games in silver or something like that. It's the same thing where you're winning these games and it's raising your MMR. So there's no big deal with that. What other people have done, and it's not that this is like heavily critical or, makes their result not worthwhile, but what people like Double Lift and Pole Belter have done with their off-roll challenges is they have used Riot accounts. that were gifted to them with like Diamond 1 MMR or like Low Masters MMR. Basically, these Riot accounts are accounts given to partners in the League Partner Program. And they say, we know that you're a high elo player and you want to do this thing for content with another account, but we don't want you to disrupt 50 or 100 low elo games. So we're going to give you an account that's loaded with Diamond 1 MMR. Well, there's a couple of things that does. They have said, which I think is fair, that if I can win in Diamond 1 MMR, of course I'm going to blow through silver and gold. And obviously, any player who is challenger in AD carry or mid lane, or played professionally in AD carry mid lane, any role really, is going to blow through silver on whatever role they play. So it's not to say that starting with a Riot account that has D1 MMR means that you couldn't have gotten through silver or gold, but you didn't have to. And for a lot of players, especially low elo players who I understand and see and interact with on YouTube all the time, their contention is that it's easier to play in higher elo games where the games make more sense. And in some ways, they're not entirely wrong. I mean, I've said myself, I think it makes more sense to play in higher elo games. And sometimes I have to have a brief adjustment period of a few games to get used to playing with diamond players or like lower games. And, you know, so I get that they would like to see a more pure climb where you have to actually climb through the ranks. Now, other people get frustrated and say it's better to have the Riot accounts because we don't want you disrupting all those low elo games to make content. You know, so you get mixed opinions on it. But the point is that those type of climbs, right, that existed before, maybe I would want to go on a climb where I kind of climb in a more pure way on different rules to prove that support players can do these things, because I haven't seen a lot of support players doing that. And that is going to be difficult for me to do when Riot now knows that my account is like Masters Plus, and it's going to say, okay, this guy's playing AD carry. Sure, maybe he's struggling with certain things on AD carry, but the system is kind of going to be pulling me towards Masters anyways, because, and it's hard to know at that point, even for myself, how much of this is due to my decision-making being Masters, even though my mechanics are a little bit scuffed, and how much of it is due to just the system with Vanguard pulling me to where my main rank is. And obviously I'm not going to get all the way there if my mechanics are worse or I'm worse at the role and newer to the role. But if it gets me close, how much of it was my own doing and how much of it was this new Vanguard system? So that's sort of a issue with this that I see is when it comes to those challenges for different roles and things like that, or streamers trying to prove, hey, I can do this on another role or I can do that, it's going to be a little bit disingenuous when you know that your MMR is being pulled to your main because it can tell that it's your Smurf account, even if you're off-rolled. So I'm not a big fan of that. But at the same time, you know, if it's a way to, that's a very small percentage, right? Like I've said before, that are me trying to prove that I can play AD carry at a certain level as a support player. That's a very small percentage of the people who are working with these alt accounts. Most of the people working on these alt accounts are like boosting and selling them, or trying to get them to a certain rank and sell them, or like on somebody else's account and boosting, or they're like, you know, on a second account and they're just trying to like stomp games for fun, or they're just like trying to climb a second account to their main rank anyways for practice or something like that. And all of those people need to move through ranked as quickly as possible so that it's not disruptive for low elo games, and this helps with that. So it's a mixed bag issue, but we got to move on to the champion changes. This thing is going to go really long. Champions here. Okay. Do I want to read the blurb? Several champions, I think we have to because there's so many changes, we really need to know what's going on. Several champions are getting some jungle-specific tuning to make their first clears comfortable and competitive with the average jungler. So it sounds like they're going to be adding some jungle modifiers to get some champions into jungle. We're not looking for 3-minute full clears as a way to make them viable. We're doing these jungle buffs for two primary reasons. First, we know autofill is a real phenomenon that can make some games feel hopeless from the start, and knowing how to pilot your champion has large ramifications on who wins the game. Wow, that's really an interesting take. So they're saying that they want more champions to be viable in jungle so that when they autofill people from like top lane or mid lane or something like that into jungle, that their champions are just straight up viable. You know, so if you're a a Diana mid player, you're a Kiana mid player, you're a Mordekaiser top player, all of a sudden you get jungle. And there's some different things about the jungle role for sure, but you're so good at piloting your champion that it makes a big difference compared to if you throw them on a champion that instead of a million mastery points, and they've gotten to masters mostly with Mordekaiser top, now they're just playing Mordekaiser jungle, so they still bring all that experience to the table. Instead, that guy would be on Jarvan with 10 games played, in normals or something like that, and we'd be cooked. So I kind of like that. So where is, as I've seen this in the Braum Discord, where's Braum jungle modifier? Bring it to me, Riot. Because Braum jungle, I'm telling you, we just need a modifier. If he could clear the jungle, Braum jungle would be looking pretty hot. But we can't clear the jungle or minion waves in top lane or anything. So, we might need some help there. But anyway, so no Braum jungle, but that's kind of interesting that they're taking that approach, that's the first reason they list for why they're trying to put more champions into jungle. Second, I totally agree with that. I think it makes a lot of sense. We saw with inclusions like Sylas jungle that certain champions actually make an entire role more popular and sustain that popularity. The more people are playing the role, the fewer autofills win-win. So they're saying, which also makes a lot of sense, certain champions in League are just popular. If they can play jungle, or a role that's not as popular, or a role where it's really important that the players playing it aren't autofilled and they're actually trying to play jungle and they come into the game with a plan and a strategy, then we're less likely to have autofills that are trolling the game. And I completely agree with that. We also expect these changes to be somewhat risky, as most of these champions were completely non-viable in the jungle before, and there may be a lot of ground to cover between having an acceptable clear and actually fulfilling their role, or alternatively, they're suddenly the best champion in the game once they can clear. So we'll be closely watching which of these junglers attract a real player base and which ones comfortably fit this new role. So yeah, that's always the danger, right? Like we've talked about, it's super hard even for good players to judge jungle modifiers or clear speeds. You give Braum, like I was talking about, unironically, you give a champion like Braum the clear speed of like the fastest clearing jungler in the game, and all of a sudden this champion that you would never think of as a good jungler, I'm not saying Braum jungle is good, by the way, I haven't even played it, but all of a sudden, just as a hypothetical, this champion with so much CC and utility and so many base stats as he levels up and stuff like that, who can farm and get items now and can like bring all of that to the table. If he can clear like anybody, all of a sudden a champion like Braum could suddenly become the best jungler in the game. And now what do we do? Because we didn't intend or think Braum would become the best jungler in the game just because we made him clear. But we just wanted BenTbeyondrepair to be able to play jungle if he got autofilled. And now he's taken over the game, so we got to roll it back, So that's always the danger with these jungle changes, is that it's hard to predict how good they're actually going to end up being. So they can end up being really insane. Okay, so we get into the actual changes. This is going to roll into something I forget whether I've even made the video or not yet. Somebody asked a really good question about role popularity, about why jungle isn't more popular as a role. And this feels like it's directly addressing that and trying to make jungle more popular as a role. But, interesting data on that. That'll be a whole separate video, though. Again, unfortunately, we're going to have to catch up here, with some videos. But yeah, that'll have to be a whole separate video. But somebody asked a really good question. I took a crack at it, but I'll have to do it again to get that up, because I don't think I put that up. But yeah, there's definitely some answers to that. Jungle's not the least popular role in the game. It's like, depends on what rank you're looking at. Obviously, different roles are different popularities. But in general, the gist of it is that jungle is almost always across all roles like the third most popular role. And, top and mid lane are really popular in low elo. And then top falls off in popularity the higher rank you go, to the point where I think top is one of the least popular roles. It's either it's top and support are like the least popular roles in high elo. which is no surprise. If you've ever tried to put a team together or something like that in high elo, it's a disaster to find a top laner. And it's a weird phenomenon too, because there's not a lot of supports, but supports are very interested in playing in a team environment, because playing support in solo queue feels so bad comparing to playing support in a team environment. Whereas like playing top lane in solo queue versus a team environment, you don't really care. So there's a lot of supports looking for a team, even though there's not a lot of supports, but there's not a lot of top laners, and not a lot of them are looking for teams. So top lane actually seems to be the hardest one to find in general for competitive and that sort of thing. But anyways, so that's an aside. We'll get into that. So top lane falls off. But jungle is not really that unpopular. It's just kind of in the middle in terms of popularity. And I think that there's reasons for that. Broadening the champion pool will definitely increase jungle's popularity, but I don't know that it's necessary. Jungle actually has one of the largest champion pools of any role. I think AD carry probably has the most limited. Support, you can get really creative actually, but in terms of like mainstay viable support champions that are normally being picked, support probably has the second most limited. Then maybe you're looking at like mid lane third. Top lane and jungle have a pretty deep champion pool and tend to have a lot of overlap with each other as well. So I don't know about the champion pool thing, but it will help. Obviously, I mean, if every champion in the game could jungle, it would definitely help with jungle's popularity. But I don't know that that's necessarily good. But for some champions, it should be fine. They're just adding 3 champions that can jungle this patch. I think the main reason why jungle is not as popular as it is, as crazy as this sounds, is you usually choose what role you're interested in playing very early on into your time playing the game. And the fact that there's still no jungle tutorial is, I think, just a huge reason why jungle isn't more popular. The other thing is nobody recommends that anyone learns jungle, because it doesn't teach you the kind of skills that you need in order to be a better player, because you're not constantly trading and laning versus someone. I've made this argument before. Even support players are constantly laning and trading versus people, having to space and throw abilities to poke and skirmish and all these things. Junglers don't have to fight as often as any other role in the game. And because they don't have to fight as often as any other role in the game, I think their mechanics are stunted. Also, almost every fight that a jungler takes is going to be a numbers advantage towards their side, because they're the one who's dictating that our team has a numbers advantage here. So they're almost always fighting in conditions where, maybe I mess up an ability, it's not that big of a deal because we have a numbers advantage. Or it's not like it comes down to the perfect mechanical play. I mean, sometimes it does, but most of the time, compared to a solo kill or something like that, you don't have to play it mechanically perfectly when you have a 2 versus 1 or a 3 versus 2. And jungle is fighting in 2 versus 1 and 3 versus 2 situations quite a lot. So I don't think it develops you that much as a player. It's very different from the other roles and hard to transition to another role once you've been playing jungle for a while. So nobody recommends that new players learn jungle, and there's no tutorial for it. So I think that that's a big reason why jungle is a few percentage points less popular than other roles. And maybe they should look at that if they're still concerned about jungle popularity. Now, that's not really going to immediately translate into more high elo junglers, but it would definitely help at the lower end of the ladder, where it's still important for the outcomes of the games. Okay, finally, we get into the champion changes. My bad. Aatrox, passive, Deathbringer stance, monster damage cap 100 to 100 to 320 based on level. So Aatrox is one of the champions that they're going to try to slot into jungle. That makes sense. I was saying Aatrox is one of those champions that they probably didn't want to buff pre-Worlds because of how strong he is in top lane, but if the changes that they're making to Aatrox here are just to jungle and don't affect top lane, then, which it looks like, then obviously that's fine, and it's not like they're actually buffing Aatrox top at all. Okay, so his Q, bonus monster damage 0 to 40 flat bonus damage multiplied by other effects like sweep spots and multicasts. Okay, Ahri. Our latest buff to Ahri didn't get her quite as high up as we'd hoped, so we're back to deliver some more damage. We're juicing up her W when used to pick off an individual target and rewarding her for landing autos, E, or generally just properly isolating her opponents. Okay, so W, subsequent hit damage 30% to 40%, and maximum single target hit damage is going from 64 to 192 to 72 to 216, and from a 64% AP ratio to a 72% AP ratio. So that's a pretty substantial buff to RAW. I don't know that that was necessary because I think Ari's in a fine spot. All I know, I mean, it was okay. I guess her win rate wasn't that hot. Emerald Plus, she was looking at a 49.38% win rate. Do people even play Ari? Am I missing it? Where is Ari even on this list for Gold Plus? Am I blind? There it is. Oh, she was a little bit higher the lower down you went. So she was about 50% before. So she should be a little bit over 50% in Gold Plus. I think that that's fine, though. I get mid, secondary, and I ban Ari. But a lot of the reason why I ban Ari is not because she's broken. It's just because I'm trying to ban one tricks, and there's a lot of Ari one tricks, especially in high elo, to get them to dodge. I ban Ari when I get mid, but I don't think it's broken or anything, so that's fine. Ambessa, Ambessa jungle. Monster damage, plus 125 to plus 150 on her Q. Not a huge change there, actually, but I think she's already been played in the jungle a little bit, right? Let's see if I can find this here. Oh, man, I'm blind. Oh, it's way down here at the bottom. So it's got about a 1% pick rate. The win rate's a little bit below 50%, but it's basically fine. So they wanted to be really careful with Ambessa because she's already doing well enough that they just want to get more people to play her or realize they can play her in jungle, but they don't want to actually make her that much stronger. This should be fine. Ashe, attack speed 25 to 75% on her Q to 20% to 60%. So they're actually nerfing Ashe's Q. I'm a little bit surprised. Ashe has been played a lot recently. Is she doing really well? Yeah, she is doing really well too. So, okay, well, there you go. Caitlyn also been doing really well. Like Ashe above, Caitlyn's been eating up a lot of the ADC pick rate. Passive headshot, champion damage increase 60 to 120% of total AD to 60 to 100% of total AD. Crit formula is going to be the same based off of that. Non-champion damage increase 110 to 120% total AD to 110% total AD. So it's just going to stay at the lowest one. It's not the biggest nerf in the world. Well, this doesn't really matter a whole lot anyways against minions. Actually, the champion damage going down here 20% is kind of big. But what is the level breakpoints? Because I know for Braum's passive, it's level 6, 11, and 16. So if you don't feel this minus 20 until level 16, it's really not that big of a deal. And it's staying 60%, here. So if this kicks in at level 6 and this doesn't change to minus 10% total AD until you get all the way to level 11, Caitlyn's strong suit is obviously in her lane. And if her headshot's not changed at all, her AD, nothing like that, she's just the same until level 11. I don't really know that that's going to take her down that much. If her passive levels are at the same breakpoints that I'm thinking about with Braum. So yeah, that doesn't seem like it's going to do a whole lot, to be honest. But I don't think she was dominating so hard she needed a big nerf anyways. Yeah, I mean, she's sitting at like 50% Emerald Plus. Obviously, second highest pick rate, though. Below, yeah, it's a little bit higher if you go a little bit lower in rank, but nothing crazy. Cho'Gath, E monster damage 20 to 100, plus 30% AP, plus up to 200 based on target max HP. To 100 to, let me read this again. 20 to 100 to 100 to 300, plus 30% AP to plus 30% AP. But then it loses up to an additional 200 based on target max HP. So if you gained the maximum 200, it would have been initially 220, but then later on it would have been 300. So later on, it's the same. It's 300 if you're getting the maximum amount. Earlier on, it's less if you were getting a lot less if you were getting the maximum amount. but it's probably more if you're not getting the maximum amount. And if you're playing in jungle, obviously they're not always going to be at like full max HP, so you're going to get more damage here overall, which should help us clear a little bit. It's a little bit of a confusing one, but while he's no stranger to being played in all sorts of alternate roles, Cho'Gath has naturally fitting jungle kit, and we'd like to make that work well. We're adjusting his E damage versus monsters to no longer care about their max HP and instead just deliver a solid punch to get through his camps. This should be an unequivocal buff to early monster damage. So this is kind of interesting. I actually played Cho'Gath jungle in Season 3 in my very first ranked game. For one ranked game, I used to go full HP stacking Cho'Gath. Like Warmog's, full HP Cho'Gath in bronze. And I'm kind of excited to see Cho'Gath being played in jungle again. That being said, I think it's a little bit more complicated than they're saying here because, well, that's true. I agree. This is just going to be a buff to early monster damage. There are places where this matters. Like, let's say that you're doing Dragon or something like that, where there's a lot of target max HP. I think that you would lose some damage here. I mean, you'd have to get into a lot of math. I'm not going to take the time to do, but I think you'd lose a lot of damage on doing things like Dragon. And Cho'Gath jungle, one of the main points would be to do objectives like Dragon with your ult, kind of frequently and spam those objectives. So, losing that might not be that great, but his clear being better is more important ultimately, I think, than that. But it's, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Okay, Dr. Mundo. So we've seen, are these the 3 jungle changes already? They did Aatrox, Ambessa, and Cho'Gath jungle. So we'll see if there's more than that, but I think they mentioned 3, so that would be it, unless those changes to Ambessa were just meant to buff Ambessa jungles, which was already being played, and they have a different champion in mind that they're trying to put into the jungle. Dr. Mundo has once again risen up the ranks in popularity due to some very skilled players playing him publicly. Okay, E Blunt Force Trauma, bonus attack damage from maximum health, 2 to 2.8% to 2 to 3.2%. So that's going to be more than before. Fixed a bug where Dr. Mundo was getting maximum damage at 30% missing HP instead of 70% missing HP. Maybe they feel like the bug fix is so large that nerfing it is appropriate. I'm just confused because I thought they were nerfing it. Maybe the bug fix is such a nerf or something. We think Dr. Mundo is appropriately balanced in both roles, but we'll continue monitoring how he's performing. Very impactful bug fix this patch, which will increase his win rate. So I must have misread this. I thought it was the opposite. But we're preemptively nerfing him a bit. Okay, they're mostly shipping a bug fix, and they think that this will be mostly power neutral, is the gist of this. But yeah, this is a little bit confusing. So there was a bug where he was getting his maximum damage at 30% missing HP instead of 70%. Maybe they wrote it wrong. I'm pretty sure that means that this would decrease his win rate now that it's... Maybe they meant it was increasing his win rate? Anyways, written really confusingly. But obviously, if he was getting more maximum damage, when he's only missing 30% of his HP, instead of at 70% missing HP, he's getting that extra damage earlier, and that would have increased his win rate in the past. Changing it would decrease his win rate, which is why they countered by buffing his bonus attack damage for maximum health here on his E to kind of counter what they did with the bug fix. I don't know why they wrote that the changing the bug will increase his win rate. Changing the bug decreases his win rate, but I don't know. Okay, Fizz. Oh, yeah, Fizz Jungle. The one game I played on this patch, before I realized we were on the patch and saw the map, I had Fizz Jungle on my team, and we won, so we'll see what's going on with that. So maybe the Ambessa change was targeted at that. Maybe they wrote that they had 3 jungle changes in mind, but they actually just have more. and they're going crazy. While Fizz wins an appropriate number of games in mid lane, he's incredibly feast or famine and often relies on simply leaving his lane to go kill other champions. We'd like to make him more robust in playing out his laning phase. We're also taking a swing at enabling Fizz jungle. We think that this new role is a bit of a stretch and may not pan out in the end, but we're swinging hard to get his first jungle clear into something comfortable and seeing if players enjoy him here. That's crazy. But, you know, I said it. I'm going to keep saying it. Fungal. Okay, it's Fizz jungle. Fungal. Okay, so Fungal is coming to the Rift just in time for Christmas. Base armor 22 to 26. Okay, so he's got 4 more armor. That's going to help him a lot in both his lane and in jungle because you need that flat armor to clear healthily. Passive Nimble Fighter increased by 10 against jungle monsters, now 14 plus 1% AP. So getting an extra 10 damage on his W against jungle monsters, or on his passive, not on his W, my bad, is going to be... Wait. Uh-oh. Wait, what is this passive? I'm thinking of the W passive damage, but I think we saw this years ago. It was one that surprised us. Doesn't Fizz get resistances as his passive? Now I got to look up Fizz passive because I think Fizz, or maybe they changed it, but that's not the right one. What is Fizz's passive? Fizz is permanently ghosted and reduces every instance of incoming damage by 4 plus 1% AP up to a maximum of 50% reduction. So not resistances, but he takes reduced damage. Maybe they changed that from resistances at some point, but the point is that he takes reduced damage. So that's being increased here by 10 flat. Every time any jungle monster hits him, he's taking 10 less damage from it. That's quite big because he's going to clear a lot more healthy because of that. So this is base armor is going to make him more healthy. Taking 10 less damage from 4 to 14 flat is going to make him take a lot less damage. So that's really important for letting him clear healthy. Hold on, I gotta turn the heater off. My bad. W Seastone Trident, active and on-hit damage, deals plus 60 damage to monsters. Okay, so here's the W on hit. Plus 60 is a ton. That's crazy. I guess they're really, I mean, like they said, they're going really hard on the change because they feel like Fizz jungle is so out of being viable that they need him to clear a heck of a lot faster in order to get there. And then they're upping his ult cooldown from 100 to 120, 85 to 100, and then 70 to 80. So it's going to be 20 seconds longer, 15 seconds longer, then 10 seconds longer. I think that if you're Fizz, you don't mind this a ton because you can play around that ult cooldown, right? And so, yes, it gives you maybe a little bit less opportunities. But I think if I was a laner and I played Fizz, I would rather have the extra base armor, the 4 base armor. Maybe I'm trolling. I think I would rather have the 4 base armor as a melee champion in mid and have my ult be on a 20-second longer cooldown to play around. I would rather just play around that cooldown, but then be much healthier in the early laning phase and stuff like that and against certain matchups than have the ult cooldown be 20 seconds shorter. But maybe I'm trolling. So this might take Fizz in lane down a little bit, but not by much. And then obviously it helps Fizz jungle a lot because there wasn't a Fizz jungle at all before. I'm kind of curious now. I want to open up almost the replay of my last game. How fast did this guy clear jungle on Fizz? I mean, this patch is going to go so long anyways. We might as well, right? Can we just take a look at this guy's clear on Fizz real quick? I think it'd be interesting because we have an easy example of it here. Here we go. How fast did this guy clear on Fizz? Let's see. We had a fun one. We had Orange Jungle versus Fizz Jungle. Beautiful map, by the way. Here we go.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. 30 seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned.
Oh, my bad. My game sounds really loud. I took it down a notch. I'm getting old. I'm an old man. I have to be able to hear. Oh my god. So Fizz and Ornn both cleared their jungle in 320. Now, I'm not a jungler, so I don't know how great that is, but that seems pretty good to me. I think that seems pretty good to me. That's pretty fast. Did they do something to Ornn jungle this patch too? I guess we'll find out, right? Because is that in here? Yeah, Ornn buffs are in here. They must have made a lot of changes. I don't know why they said 3 champions in jungle when they are doing like 5 or 6. Okay, so anyways, yeah, Fizz jungle can clear. So, I mean, that guy, I'm not sure that he's optimized his clear. I don't have any idea, but that guy finished clearing at like 320. And, you know, it's day 1. There's probably some improvement to be made on that time. So that's pretty fast. From what I understand, junglers usually finish their clear. I mean, we could put up a metric too. When does first Scuttle Crab spawn League? Is the AI even right? 3:30. So you've got to be able to clear before 3:30. Well, I thought it was slower. It's probably changed over the years. $3:30. So 3:20 is not that fast then, I feel like. But that guy's probably griefing. Lucky he's clearing versus an Ornn, it doesn't matter. Okay, but yeah, actually 3:20 maybe not that fast then. Because you probably want to be done... I mean, 3:20 is fine, but it's not that fast. It's not like game-breakingly fast. And then obviously it's not like the rest of the champion's kit is particularly amazing at playing jungle or ganking anything. He has a little bit of gap close and damage, but that's it. No CC until he gets his ult. Even once he gets his ult at level 6, it's late and it's pretty hard to use, especially if you're just trying to use it on its own. Okay, Jace. Q to the skies. Q hammer stands. Bonus monster damage. Okay, Jace jungle. We're just throwing every champion into jungle. Bonus monster damage is 0 to 50 flat bonus damage. So he's just getting 50 extra flat bonus damage on his hammer form Q to jungle camps, jungle monsters. And then his Q shock blast is also getting 50 flat. And he should actually be able to clear kind of okay, right? Because he's got so many abilities to hit things with or something. We think Jace jungle is a bit of a long shot, but there's a chance he's got a real player base in this new role. We're delivering some buffs to make his first clear more comfortable and watching to see how many players are interested. It's kind of similar to Fizz, but maybe even worse. This makes 0 sense, right? Like, at least you could argue that Fizz, if he goes to gank somewhere, can gap close and like use his ult to make something happen. Jace has literally not only no CC, he barely has any gap close, and he doesn't get CC once he's level 6. His entire kit is just designed to be used in lane. I don't see how this would be good in jungle at all. And like jungle gets overcompensated for with like mana when they like are in the jungle and river and finishing camps and stuff like that. And Jace's passive is designed to like give him mana back when he's hitting stuff in lane, so, in hammer form. So like he's not utilizing that really when he's in jungle because he already has enough mana. It's just so much better in lane. This seems like there's no way this Jace jungle thing would make any sense at all. Jhin looks quite weak at the present, so we're giving him some damage buffs and found another place to include the number 4 in his tooltip, which is the only buff he really needs. Base stats, base AD from 59 to 61. We saw how big of a deal that was with Caitlyn, you know, so that might actually do something, especially when, not that Jhin is the longest range AD carry in terms of his autos, but having base AD on a kind of a caster champion like Jhin, very important as well, because he's getting a lot out of his Q, his force shot, his W, his ults, things like that from the damage as well. Passive Whisper move speed on crit is 14%, 14%, plus 0.4% attack speed to plus 0.44% attack speed. I just think that 0.04% movement speed or it's 0.04% of his attack speed in movement speed. So yeah, if you had one attack speed, one attack per second, it would be 0.04% extra movement speed. That's so little. Obviously, they're just doing that for the because they felt like they could put that in there and it wouldn't do anything. For the numerology. W Deadly Flourish, damage 60 to 200 to 70 to 210, so that's getting 10 flat damage, and then no increase to the AD ratio. I think that that's fine, though. I know that this doesn't really, the passive change doesn't really matter. 10 damage on W is not a big buff, but it's, you know, it's kind of nice if you're a Jhin player. But most of the changes the +2 base AD, which does a decent amount for the champion. So that's why they're not going to hit him with like 4 serious buffs on, you know, all of his different abilities or anything like that when they're already giving him that. Jinx, Super Mega Death Rocket, her ult, maximum damage 300 to 600 to 250 to 550. So it's going down by 50 at all ranks. 155% bonus AD to 130% bonus AD. So that's going down by 25%. And then it's staying the same at 25 to 35% missing HP. So that's a pretty big damage nerf to Jinx's ult. As with other ADC nerfs, Jinx wins a large portion of her games and risks crowding out other champions if left untouched. I miss the other nerfs in this patch. Well, we haven't gotten to the nerfs in the patch, but sure. We want to preserve her identity as a late game auto attack monster, so we're nerfing some of Jinx's spell damage. Yeah, that's really tough for Jinx, because not only is this going to mean less kills, but it's going to mean a lot less passive use if you can't use your ult to get those passives off in more situations. So that's going to feel pretty bad, I would say, for Jinx. Kai'Sa base armor down by 2, and R Killer Instinct cooldown up by 10 seconds at all ranks. Yeah, Kai'Sa's been a really popular AD carry for a long time, trying to create some more variety in the role. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Not a huge nerf, but I can see why they're moving in that direction. That sucks, because the AD carries I play is Kai'Sa and Jinx, so GG. But that's fine. Hui, QE Molten Fisher. So that is the, you know, he puts thing on the ground. One gives movement speed to his teammates and stuff, and the other one does damage to the enemies. This is his like mini rumble ult. Hit damage 20 to 100 to 20 to 80, so that's going down gradually up to 20 damage off. That begs the question, how does that work on Hui? I've never thought about this before, where like you have to have 5 points into that ability, so we would think normally here, okay, well, does he max Q first? If he maxes Q first, then he actually loses more damage more quickly. Whereas, you know, if he maxes another ability and maxes this last, it just stays at 20 the entire time. I have no idea how it works with Hui, where you have, let's say, 5 points into Q, but 1 point into E. Does that mean that this is 5 points into this? Is it Q? It's probably based on the first letter, right? The first ability that you're, you know, so there's a QE, whereas like, I think, so maxing Q probably buffs all your Q abilities, if that makes sense. That would make more sense. So, which doesn't help me either way, because I don't know what abilities Hui maxes. I don't know much about Hui, to be honest, in terms of what he does. But yeah, that shouldn't be too bad. I don't see Hui's using this ability a lot either. Mostly for wave clear, I guess they use it for. 30% AP ratio staying the same. So this is the hit damage. Damage over time is going from 50 to 250 to 50 to 200. Is that the total damage over time? No, because they're coming in with total damage next. So that could be really bad depending on how many ticks of that he loses. But it's going from 50% AP ratio to 60%. So the damage over time is actually going up if you have enough AP. Although not really. You'd have to have a tremendous amount of AP for it to make up for missing 50 flat damage on a 10% AP ratio buff. You'd need 500 AP. So actually that doesn't help that much. Total damage 70 to 350, 70 to 280. So you're gradually, it's the same rank 1, but then you're gradually losing 70 damage, and you get a 10% AP ratio to compensate. So you'd be doing the same amount of damage on this one if you have 700 AP. Obviously, instead of losing 70 damage, you'd be losing 35 if you have half of 700 AP. So if you had 350 AP, you'd be only losing 45 damage. That's a massive nerf. That's really a lot of damage. Losing like 70 damage is such a massive amount flat off of an ability. The only saving grace is that Hui has so many other ability options and stuff like that he doesn't use this ability all that much, right? Especially in some rules, like mid lane is the one that uses this the most, and they're talking about that a little bit in the blurb. So I sort of get where they're going with this, but I don't know. That's pretty massive. But maybe it's fine because he doesn't spam that ability that much. But yeah, they're saying that he can wave clear too easily with this. We'd like to weaken his access to non-committal wave clear by nerfing this output. That could be fine. It's just one of his combos, one of his abilities. Malphite has a natural jungle kit. They've said that about some champions, and I don't know. Does he have a natural jungle kit? I mean, to be fair, he has more of a natural jungle kit than Fizz or Jace, especially, even more than Ambessa. Maybe even as much or more as Cho'Gath, but I don't know about stating so clearly that he has a natural jungle kit. He lacks damage and engage without his ult and gap close. He has literally nothing. So I don't know. But, we'll see. Monster modifier on his W is going from 1x damage to 2x damage. Well, I mean, we'll see what that does to his wave clear. Hint, hint, start W. Okay, we're going to see. It's definitely going to shake things up. It'll be interesting to see. Mel. We're glad that Mel is a viable mid laner. However, she's also proven to be one of League's most frustrating champions. That's very true. People ban her a lot. We're looking to alleviate her passive buffs that required her to, the ones they just gave her, that required her to take on more risk were successful in our eyes. Oh. So we're headed back to that. To continue to expose her to more risk, we're weakening Solar Snare's lockdown and self-peel potential. We know she's still got such sharp interactions that she'll still sport one of League's highest ban rates. I might be brain dead today, I'm going to be honest. We better get through Mel so we can get on to the next one. So they're saying that they want to continue what they did last time, which is they forced more damage into her passive, took more damage away from her other abilities, or in this case utility, away from her E. They're going to put more power, they call it more of her power budget, into her passive, so she has to walk up closer, actually auto attack you, get in range of you being able to trade back. And if she stays back and continues to play safe and passive, she'll just do less damage or have less utility, and that'll make her win rate a little bit lower or easier to deal with. So passive Searing Brilliance, damage per spell, 24 to 99 based on level to 24 to 150 based on level. So obviously they're buffing that passive. It's also going up from 9% AP to 15% AP. That's a big buff though. Okay. E Solar Snare. Root duration 1.25 to 2.25 to 1.2 to 1.6. I'm a little bit worried about this change because unlike the other one where they took damage away from her and then gave it to her in her passive, they're actually just giving her more damage back. And I don't know that she needs the full root duration to like do what she does to you anyways. So you may be able to get away with, yeah, it even sounds like a lot, but like early on the root duration's basically the same. And later on, like it's significantly shorter later on, by what do we got? Like 0.65 seconds. So, 2/3 of a second. But if she can hit all of her stuff, if she can do all of her damage during that time frame anyways, I'm just not sure that nerfs her at all or matters a whole lot. And then she's just getting a bunch of damage on her passive. So this is a really risky change for a champion they clearly want to nerf, and that they're calling one of League's most annoying champions. Because if she doesn't need to rely on the full CC duration, losing a quarter of a second or, 0.1, 0.2 seconds off of a CC doesn't really make a big difference at all. It might just be unnoticeable. And, so she can get her whole damage combo. If her Q goes off quick enough that it unloads during the CC duration regardless, then she's just getting extra damage on her passive. And if people already feel like she's too strong, then this is just going to make her worse. So I'm a little bit concerned about the Mel change there. Misfortune isn't winning as often as she should for how straightforward she is to play. That's interesting. I thought MF was pretty decent right now. And unlike many of the other ADCs in this patch, she is indeed a caster, so we're looking to amp up her ability to take over team fights with her ultimate. So one of the things that they're saying, which is more fair here, is that they were talking about before, it's kind of vaguely written here, that, Kai'Sa and Jinx are these, like, very popular, hyper-scaling AD carry champions, and they want more variety in ADC, and they feel like Misfortune, who's, pretty decent champion, giving her a little bit of a buff is going to create some more variety by getting caster ADCs into the role more, which is something they did by buffing Jhin as well. And I think that that's totally fine. So damage per wave, 75% of total AD to 80% of total AD, and then the AP ratio is staying the same. So she's just getting an extra 5% total AD, but on every single wave of her ult. So kind of a decent buff there. And Misfortune was already in a decent spot. So it looks like they're, wanting to force some variety in ADCs, get those caster ADC champions back in there. And this could totally help to do that. Okay, so I'm assuming Ornn jungle, because I saw that in my game, like we just saw. So Ornn is a totally viable top laner. We think he could also shine in the tank jungle roster. So we're buffing some of his monster damage caps. Did I call Ornn a her? Like, we may be completely fried. Okay, but yeah, Ornn walks into class, Ornn, she, her, and then he's got the voice that goes, ooh, I don't know. W, Bella's Breath. Active monster damage cap, 155 to 255 to 260 to 500. So that's a huge, lift on that cap. Again, as I've talked about, though, before with jungle changes, I would need to know, is he even hitting the cap? When he goes to W a level 1 Raptor camp, is he actually getting maxed out at 155 damage to that camp, and now it's going to go all the way up to 260? Or was he doing 90 damage to it with W, and now he's still doing 90 damage to it with W, because this is just the cap on the maximum amount of damage it can do to the camp, rather than the the amount of damage it should do itself. Passive monster damage cap going from 250 to 260 to 500. So this is another one that's getting a big buff, but is also a cap. So again, if he wasn't doing enough damage with this passive that it even triggered the cap, then this does absolutely nothing. I assume when they make these changes, though, obviously they spend more than 1 minute looking at it like I have been. So I assume if they're lifting the cap, they probably know that he's hitting the cap, unless they're really trying to trick us with some placebo change to get people to try Ornn jungle when it's totally fine in the first place. But I kind of doubt that with something like Ornn jungle. So I assume that them lifting the cap means that he was already hitting the cap and that it is truly a buff. But we'd have to see, again, what his clear speed is actually like. If you thought that the jungle modifiers, where you're saying, oh, his Q is going to do an extra 150% instead of 0% or instead of 100% or whatever you want to call it, if you thought that was hard to read in a patch notes and figure out what his clear speed was going to be, can anyone tell me off the top of their head what his monster damage cap on his W going from 155 to 260 at rank 1 is going to do in terms of the number of seconds for his clear speed? If you can figure that out on your head, then I don't know. I mean, you may be like a jungle prodigy, like a jungle savant, that you can figure that out in your head, because nobody has any idea until they run it down in my solo queue game. Rek'Sai top has been an enjoyable spectator experience. Has it? But frankly, a miserable one to play against. This champion can't die. They just tunnel out of everything, and it's crazy. We don't want to remove this role from viability, but we'd like to reduce just how immovable she is through her lane sustain. Her jungle will take a small hit from this nerf, but she can sustain a small nerf there as well. Okay. Passive Fury of the Xursai. Fury gained on minion hit 20% to down to 16%, which they're saying is down from 5 to 4. Max HP healed 10% to 20% based on level to 9 to 20%. This is a very small hit, so I don't feel like this is going to change anything about Rek'Sai top at all. Maybe it takes a little bit of sustain away in the lane, but I don't know. My problem, as at least, and this is not laning against it, this is a support player coming to try to gank this thing. This champion can't die to anything. You try to CC it, and it tunnels, she just tunnels 10 times back to her tier 2 turret, and you can't do anything to it. So I've just committed 40 seconds to roam up towards top. I CC'd the thing 3 times, and it's still just running away through the tunnels like nothing happened. So I don't know. That was my problem with the champion from my perspective, but maybe top laners playing against it have a different perspective. Riven. Riven jungle. Bonus monster damage on her passive 0 to 50 flat. So, here's another one that can go jungle. People have played Riven jungle in the past as well. I mentioned that Cho'Gath jungle was played in the past as well, at least in my bronze game. But, no, people played Cho'Gath jungle in the past. But yeah, Riven jungle's been played in the past. Was it ever very good? Maybe not. At least Riven has some CC. She's got the damage. She's got the gap closed and the mobility. I think Riven jungle could be okay. It's one of the better ones on the list. Certainly better than Jay's jungle. But we'll see. Okay, so Scion monster modifier 150% to 165% on Q. And you use passive a lot on Riven, so it does add a lot of extra damage to her clear and should make her pretty fast. This is a type of champion where I would say off the top of my head, 50 flat damage every single auto attack is a lot of extra damage when you're playing Riven jungle. So that is kind of a crazy amount of extra clear speed. And I don't think she had that much trouble clearing before anyways, right? Because she's got so much AoE in her kit and so much damage that I think she can clear pretty fast. So an extra 50 damage on every single auto attack, imagine how much faster she's going to clear. That one I can kind of comprehend in my head. Riven might be actually clearing really, really fast. So that could be one to look out for. So Scion, 150% on Q to 165% bonus against monsters on his Q. Again, not going to be as big as, like, let's say the Riven change. Was Scion jungle played? It has been played in the past, but I don't think very popular or that good. But I don't know. I don't know what to think about Scion jungle. Nah, he's just such a slow, bulky champion. He doesn't benefit that much from farming until 6 to get his ult to do something. I don't know. I can't see Scion jungle being that good, and this isn't even that big of a buff to go up 15% extra damage on his Q. But the worst part about his Q, too, is you're casting that thing and you can't even hit the darn jungle camps while you're casting it. I don't know that that's going to be any good. Skarner, AD growth 4 to 5, Q cooldown 8 to 4 from 8. Yeah, it was 8 to 4, now 8 to 3 seconds. So he's getting a little bit of cooldown off of his Q, a little bit of AD growth, and target max HP damage is going up from 8% to 9% on his Q. Last patch's Skarner changes unfortunately landed him weaker than we had hoped, so they over-nerfed Skarner. They're going to give him a little bit back. Shouldn't make a huge difference. I don't really know that I've very minor buffs back to him since they intended originally to nerf him anyways, and I haven't seen any Skarner anywhere. Swain E. Damage 80 to 240 to 90 to 250, so 10 flat, 70% AP is staying the same. So he's just getting 10 flat damage on his E. Mana 60 to 80 to 50 to 70, so his E is also costing 10 less mana. Yeah, I hate this change actually because Swain is actually really good, and there's a lot of people in Masters who play Swain. And I think the champion's really good. So, and I play Braum, who hard counters Swain. I win a lot of games versus Braum. We probably go to myop.gg right now, and I probably have a great win rate versus Swain, but I don't like the champion. Let's see what we got here versus Swain. Yeah, I'm 5-2 versus Swain this year, but I think Swain's really strong despite that, despite my champion being good against it. So I'm not excited to see these buffs for Swain at all. I think that he gets played way too much. I mean, they're talking about it. Swain is weak in his most played role of support. We're giving him a little bit more power in E, on lowering its mana cost to let Swain support have more room to work with without a mana item, since he typically doesn't buy one there. But the problem is this change doesn't even attempt to help Swain support, but not help Swain in AD carry, like in bot or in mid. And I don't know that he's being played much in mid, but most of the Swain players are not playing him in support. Most of them are playing him in bot, which is the other thing. I haven't just played those 7 games versus Swain. That's just in support and just me playing Braum versus it. Obviously, I probably played against Swain bot more than I've played against Swain support. So I probably played, if I played 7 games against Swain support, I probably played 10 games at least versus Swain bot this year. So I've got those 17 games versus Swain, and I'm telling you, this champion's crazy. And this change doesn't significantly help support more than other ones. It's just it allows Swain bot to have more mana to clear while still fishing for Qs or for E's. I mean, the whole thing, it's just shenanigans. So I really don't like this change at all. I think Swain's doing way too well. Tristana AD growth 2.5 to 2.9. That's pretty significant AD growth, actually. Really interesting because when you buff something especially heavily like this, that's AD growth, this is what she gets per level. And Tristana was already a champion that benefited a lot from levels because of her passive, making her range longer the higher level she gets. This is a buff that's significantly targeted at Tristana mid. And I don't know, I mean, they're not talking about that at all. It seems like they just didn't necessarily, I mean, maybe they meant to buff Tristana mid, but because they've been doing a lot of AD carry changes this patch and trying to change the AD carry meta, seems to me like this is supposed to be targeted at Trist AD carry, and they just didn't think about the implication for mid lane, and now all of a sudden, Trist mid is going to be really good, especially in comparison to playing Trist AD carry. So this is just going to, if it does anything, make Trist go to mid lane more, and maybe come back in mid lane, and they don't mention that as the goal, really. So I'm kind of confused by that change a little bit, the direction they went with the buff. Vladimir, base health 607 down to 600, base armor 27 down to 24. Good. Vladimir, I haven't seen him a lot very recently, but a little while ago when I was seeing a lot of Vladimir, that champion was hard to beat. So I don't know. It seems fine, and it's not a huge change. So, and I think it's a good way to target him is to make him a little bit more vulnerable in lane, right? He's a really scaling champion. They're not taking that identity away from him in any way. They're just making him a little bit more punishable and easier to beat in lane early so that he doesn't, beat my mid laner 4-0 or my top laner 4-0 somehow and then end up taking over the game when he should be weak early. At least give us a chance to play against him in the early game. Volley Bear, base attack damage 62 all the way up to 65. I think I called that this was going to leave him weak in top lane or whatever it was last patch. But okay, so they're buffing his base attack damage quite a bit. Okay. I guess that's fine. I don't really know. Well, how is Volibear doing after their nerfs from the last patch? Probably pretty bad if they immediately reverse course and I don't even see him. 49.3% win rate on 2.4% pick rate in Emerald Plus. Yeah, that's pretty bad. What about top lane? %49 win rate on 2.28% pick rate. Yeah, he could use a little love, so that's fine. Xayah, we like Xayah. Well, Rakan's been making waves. Xayah's been sitting on the sidelines for quite some time. Yeah, I think Xayah is a super interesting AD carry to bring back into the meta in bot lane. I'm not necessarily saying that this is going to do that, but they're making her passive feathers go up from 30 to 50% AD to 35 to 55% AD to secondary targets. That's not a very big buff, though. I mean, it's kind of niche when we're talking about like secondary targets and yeah, that's not a huge one, and it's not a very big numbers buff either. Yeah, oh well. It's a nice little buff. I definitely like to see Xayah back in the meta. I haven't seen her in a long time. One of my champions that I like in AD carry as well. Talking this patch like I'm an AD carry player. Zeri, R, Lightning Crash, movement speed per stack. Oh, be careful with Zeri, though. I mean, every time they buff this champion, we get a little bit nervous, huh? R, Lightning Crash, movement speed per stack, 0.5% to 1%. Not a big... Well, how many stacks can she get, though? I don't know how many stacks she can get on her ult. Obviously, I'm not going to look that up because we're getting near the end, and this is going to be a long one, but... obviously, if she's getting like 1 million stacks, she's getting 20 stacks or something like that, gaining an extra 10% movement speed is gigantic. If, she's getting 4 or 5 stacks or something like that, she's getting an extra 2%, 3% movement speed, not a big deal. Maybe we should look it up, actually. Yeah, let's look it up. Zeri League. Because that is going to make all the difference here to this buff, huh? Okay, so where does it say? Okay, she can generate stacks of hypercharged from enemy champions that last for 1.5 seconds. She generates 1 stack for each one she hits with an ability or a charged attack, increased to 3 on abilities that crit. Subsequent hits refresh the duration. Grant stacks only against the... Oh, so there's no maximum. She gets 3 stacks if it crits, and the time duration will go on forever if she's still free hitting people. So this is actually a big movement speed buff, because you can imagine, let's say Zeri gets in, and I'm not saying she always does this, and half the enemy team will be dead if she does this anyways, but let's say Zeri gets in and ults, and then she gets 10 auto attacks off after her ult. She gets 10 auto attacks off after her ult. That's 30 stacks, right? Just to put that into perspective, she's not going to get that many always. And again, the whole enemy team will be dead. But 30 stacks, and she's gaining half a percentage increase to movement speed. So on the 30 stacks from 10 autos, if she has high crit and it's late game, she'd be gaining 15% movement speed. And then you can kind of work on it from there. So let's say, okay, well, she gets 10 auto attacks, but she only has 50% crit, so she gets half as many stacks. I mean, it's not actually even half as many stacks because she still gets 1 even if it doesn't crit, so she would still have more than half. But so maybe instead of 15% extra movement speed from this buff, she gets 7.5% earlier on when she only has 50% crit, or 8% because you're going to get a little bit of extra from the 1 stack per Q, even if it doesn't crit. So that's still pretty significant, I'd say, gaining 8% movement speed there. And, you can swing it around the other way. Let's say Zeri doesn't get 10 auto attacks in. That's too many to get in after she ults or something like that. Maybe you say she gets half that, she gets 5. It's the same scenario, right? She's still getting, with near 100% crit, she's still getting 7.5% movement speed, which is a lot from the buff. Maybe 8% because of the 1. So that's a lot of extra movement speed. I think that's a pretty significant buff to Zeri, to be honest with you, when she's going in and ulting. It really depends. Is the rest of the champion strong enough that it can get there to those old pop-off moments, or is it just completely dead as a champion? The champion was already, oh God, the champion was already sitting at a 50% win rate in Emerald Plus before the buff. So I could easily see Zeri shoot up in popularity, especially with a lot of really popular AD carries like Kaisa got hit, Ashe got hit, Caitlyn got hit, Jinx got hit. So they hit the top 4 most popular AD carries. Zeri was already sitting down here at 50% and 3% pick rate. Could definitely see that helping Zeri quite a bit, actually. So I'm glad we looked into that. That's kind of a concerning buff, so we'll leave that one on the horizon. And then for items, just Sunfire Aegis. Sunfire Aegis has been strongly losing to Liandry's on any tank jungler who can reasonably choose between the two. Yeah, Sunfire Aegis is trash. We'd like to bring back tank forward itemization here and allow Aegis to return to the forefront. So, I mean, we'd have to dive into some math, and I'm not really interested in doing it right now, but because this does change things a little. Actually, does it really? Not really. The problem is that Bami's Cinder gives you most of what you want out of Sunfire Aegis for like a third of the price. And then even if it gives you a little bit less damage, you can take the other 2/3 of the price and put it into something else that would give you more damage as well. And now you have, both Liandry's and a Bami's Cinder, or you have Bami's Cinder plus some other item you wanted. And, so the problem is here, even with this monster modifiers, first off, you don't care as much about your clear speed late into the game or later into the game when you've already completed Sunfire Aegis. And should you even complete Sunfire Aegis, even if it means that you're clearing your camps a little bit faster at, 18, 20, 30 minutes into the game, I doubt it. You're probably still better off just getting the value out of getting Bami's Cinder and then moving on to the next item if you want that to help you clear more early and make you tankier early, because it gives a lot of health as well, which is a lot of where the value of Bami's Cinder comes in as well. So, yeah, I just don't know that this does really anything. It's kind of almost a noob trap to even be building this item, and especially now with another buff telling people to go build it, when it just doesn't matter because you're just increasing your clear speed by a couple of seconds at like 20, 30 minutes into the game. It's just a ridiculous buy. So I don't know about this one. This seems like a noob trap. Okay, so then they have ARAM and arena changes and stuff like that. Let's see, is there anything? It looks like the Blue Essence Emporium is returning, at the start of this patch today, November 19th. Practice tool added a toggle auto attack range markers function. That could be interesting. Quality of life champion select update. Okay, here we go. In an effort to speed up the pregame a little bit, we have slimmed down the Summoner Rift draft pick a bit this patch. These changes are very minor, a few seconds here and there. As a result, champion select should feel the same, but snappier. Here are the details. The intro animation changed from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. Can they just go harder on this and just get rid of all of the junk wasted time in here? Hover pre-select changed from 15 seconds to 7 seconds. Ban phase changed from 30 seconds to 25 seconds. Total pick phase changed from 3 minutes to 2.5 minutes. Each pick will be 25 seconds as a result. No changes to the AFK check or the loadout phase. These changes will be shipped to NA and OSH, Summoner's Rift Champion Select queues as a pilot with launch 25.23. That's this patch. More regions will be covered in the next patch. Queues that will have the changes are solo and duo, ranked flex, and normal draft. So we're seeing that already. That is wonderful that they're moving in that direction, but they could probably do more. Why do we have an intro animation at all? I don't know. Why do we have lots of things? Do we need 7 seconds to hover? Can we get that down to 5? Does the ban phase need to be 25 seconds? If we can hover in 15 seconds, maybe we can ban in 15 seconds instead of 25. That saves us another 10. We're getting 25 seconds each to pick. Again, maybe we could pick in a shorter amount of time. I don't know. But at the end of you don't want it to get too short, though. And at the end of the day, this is a very positive direction for them to be moving in. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. The other thing is, I think it actually makes it easier if you kind of shorten it over time. You keep changing the amount of time. People will get used to it, gradually being shorter and shorter, so they'll be more comfortable with it being shorter. I think that could be okay too. So definitely like that they're saving some time there. Bug fixes and quality of life stuff, don't really care. The following skins will be released this patch: Rain Shepherd Tristana, Rain Shepherd Gwen, and Rain Shepherd. They look pretty green. My bad. Immortal Journey Zahen, the new champion. These are tremendous skins. I'd say that one of the best skins, in my personal opinion, one of the best skins ever released in the last year or two is that Rain Shepherd Milio skin. That is one of the best. So seeing that on Tristana and Gwen, definitely good moves, good looks from Riot. Again, 3 skins a patch though. Can we please, I'm going to keep begging them, hire some more skin artists? They're the only one at your company that actually makes you any money. Could we please hire another skin artist? Not an artist, can't draw, by the way. Just saying, from a business perspective, it does not make any sense that they're releasing 3 skins a patch. And if they think that they've found an optimum number of skins to release a patch, how come some patches they release 7 and some patches they release 3? That doesn't make sense. So I don't know. They seem a little bit short-staffed in the only department that makes them any money ever. So, it is what it is. They got some chromas for the same skins there, and that's the patch. With that being said, good luck in solo queue and have a wonderful day.